So, how is everybody doing this morning? So, a bunch of stuff that we're going to go through this morning. It's funny, we were laughing, going, it's such an interesting space, right? It's, first of all, it's Labor Day weekend, so that supports people with jobs, right? That's the power of Labor Day.
Yes. Mother's Day.
So,
Well, it depends on which way you're looking at it.
Right.
Jobs or labor.
I think they got Mother's Day for that one. So
Right, right, right.
working moms. This is so it's you know this is for the working moms. So. It's funny. It came down this morning because I like leaving the doors open and stuff. So because with babies, like with one baby, your whole house smells. With two, the neighbor's house smells. Like it's just you just walk in, right? So I'm like, leave the doors open. We have to air this thing out. Well, this was the first time that we came downstairs and it was cold because it's now winter, or if not winter, but fall, right? It's that space. So, sorry, I was trying to. So, all right, it's funny, we've got a lot of stuff to go over, and a lot of it's for some of the folks that aren't here. So, first of all, though, who doesn't have their direct deposit with Primerica? Does anyone not have their direct deposit with Primerica? So, it's funny, we're starting to have checks come in, and I'm like, right, I'm like, what is this? I gotta hand out a check. I'm like, oh, you don't have your deposit. So I have people call me, they're like, why don't I have the money yet? I'm like, because they would have been in your account a week and a half ago. But they gotta write a check. So now they gotta send it to the check, they gotta have the computer, they gotta send it, then they gotta mail it out, right? Versus that. So we will make sure, that we go over this every week, and we've got lots of these forums just so that we can make sure that is done. What's that? 3 weeks later, and the people are like, there's no chance. The next thing I wanted to chit chat about is, and again, you know, we'll kind of go through this, but I want to kind of go through the power of this Slack and what we're going to do about this, and why we're going to this is going to play a very, 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 very powerful tool in what we're doing. Yes.
If you turn on that light, you might be able to see it.
Lessons.
Yeah, maybe not. I take that. Helpful suggestion 1 on Saturday. Denied.
Just it's the angle. Here, I know what I watch. Right, turn off those.
My techie. I don't know why I'm like the least techie person, so I don't know why I was making suggestions.
4.
That's right.
Yeah, you almost got me in trouble.
Just get the DOS up there. Just get DOS going.
That doesn't. So
Rick doesn't even know what that is. It's like, oh, hey.
Nope, that doesn't work either. So
Guyver.
I bought this little cool phone holder thing. Boom! Right? So I have them around the house.
There you go. Hey.
You should see stars. It's all about the angle. Hey. So okay, so 2 things. One is I want to be able to kind of talk about this and what it's going to do. It's been an important, communication's obviously an important thing. And in the past, like 1,000 years ago, right, we had group texting, right? And so what we would do when people had that is then you'd give me your phone number and I'd go in and I'd send out this text. The challenge is we have an ebb and flow business, right? And so one, trying to corral people is sometimes a pain in the ass. Two, all of a sudden I would get someone who's no longer active in the business sending me, can you please take me off this list, right? Which is just so weird, like, and there's no safe space for them to say, I don't really want to know if Wade just helped 2 families lock in as allies. Like, that's just, right, we're gonna have people that come and go through that process. So then we switched to Twitter, right? And that worked, right? Because we could create a private group. The problem is I'd go to Bob and Don and go, you got to sign up for Twitter. Bob's like, I am not signing up for Twitter. Like, I have no interest in signing up for Twitter. I didn't have that conversation with Bob. I didn't need to have that conversation with Bob, right? It was like, this is a futile conversation. And so then what happens is we end up trying to like get people to sign up, and then how do they look for it? Then they've got to go through, well, should they follow share, right? They're doing all this other stuff, and now people get convoluted. And then we went to like Google Plus, and then people were like, I don't want to give Google this. I don't understand. Is this my Gmail? And then this became confusing. And so we just said, screw it. We're not going to do anything. And then what happened is that people started, right? And then people would do business, or people would help people grow, and no one knew. And they'd walk in, and then they were like, and then it was this, well, do I talk about it or do I not? And so for years, I've been trying to figure out what to do. And I've tried, like, I'm an early adopter, right? So I've got poor Adrian, right? I'm like, Adrian, try this. He's like, oh, shit, okay, right? And like 3 days later, forget that. That sucks. He's like, okay, right? So again, a couple days ago, I'm like, Adrian, try this. And he's like, shh, okay, serious. And then I'm like, dude, let's do this. And he's like, it worked. And so this one works. We like this one. We really like this one for a variety of reasons. And I'm going to go through and kind of share why. And I'm going to take a 10 or 15 minute kind of, I want you guys to understand why we use these tools. I won't do this every Saturday, but every Saturday when we're done, you realize we're going to have a Slack party, right? What's going to happen is in the middle of the meeting, right at the very beginning when there's new people, we're going to give them the ability to sign up, right? They can download the app, they can get them set up, so by the time they leave, they are integrated into the communication phase. So it'll be easy, it'll be fun, and we'll do like a 5-minute commercial, and what we'll do is we'll have someone who communicated that week to talk about how fun it was, to get the feedback and stuff like that, so we can kind of go through with that. So, but from a business standpoint, I want you guys to understand why this is such a fun and kind of important thing. The other thing is, if you guys like doing things, like if you end up doing work on your computer and stuff like that, Microsoft Snip is this little tool that's really, 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 really cool. It's, I guess I can do it this way. It gives you the ability to do like screenshots and stuff like that, and then you can like write on it, and you can do different change, and you can erase, and you can give it, and then you can share it, do all sorts of stuff. So it's like, it's awesome. It's like a really, yeah.
Can I get a little commercial for Slack really quick?
Yeah.
Because remember when I was trying to get that thing, you were.
Oh, I'm going to go through that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So in the future, yes, that would be a great commercial, but today I'm actually going to show that.
Fine.
But this is the overall view of the value that we're going to talk about. So yes.
I just wanted to participate.
Right. So a couple things. First of all, what is it? It's an opportunity. It's a space for us to communicate as a team, right? It's a place for people to watch, to pay attention, to contribute if they want to just know what's going on if they don't want to. It's a safe space. It's a non-social platform though. So it's not open to the world. It's not a Twitter where you're going to be confused with watching all. It's a professional business enterprise tool. It is built for business, right? Which is a very, very important thing for the people that are like, I don't want to get sucked into the black hole of social, right? You're not going to meet an ex-girlfriend or boyfriend on this, right? You're not going to hook no Ashley Madison experience that's going on with this. It's just, right? It's just not what that is, okay? So what happens is, right, but what it does is it allows for a couple things that I'm really, really, really excited about. First of all, it allows our team to be able to communicate. It was Sue's birthday yesterday, 2 days ago, right? So it was fun to be able to have a space for the team to be able to communicate, to be able to wish happy birthday, to be able to do that type of stuff, which is really, really fun. It was an opportunity for, before the, I went out and we helped her family, and then Cindy was able to talk about guests that was coming, who ended up coming, and so was Sue at Wade. And there was a discourse, there was a conversation to be able to celebrate wins, right? Cindy was able to lock in an ally, right? And so the opportunity to celebrate that. Look, this isn't about report your results like I wrote a sale or I picked up an IBA necessarily. It is a space for that, but it's not solely a space for that, right? Good morning, Sachin. Are other people coming with you? Oh, they're already in the conference room. Okay. We're at started it. Yeah. Hey, come on up here. Real quick. We're gonna start up here first. We'll be up here for about 10 minutes, and then we'll be all down here. Good morning. 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 So if you're here for the first time, what we'd like to do is introduce you. So if this is your first Saturday, if you wouldn't mind standing up, the person invited you might stand up and introduce them. So why doesn't that back row, for the most part, stand up in front row? Mr. Tony, would you like to start?
Good morning. That's my mother in the blue.
Hi, mother in the blue. Her name is
Norma.
Hi, Norma.
And I'm Matthew. And Denny.
Hi, Matthew.
I'm Griselda.
Hi, Griselda.
And this is Isaac.
What's up, Isaac? Met Wendy before. So, so all of them are getting ready to take their tests, finish hours, all that other stuff. So the Gomez team is growing. So what we're doing is just kind of walking through one of the things that we set up from a communication tool, and it's called Slack. And really we're just kind of walking through the benefits of this and where it goes. You can go on iOS, you can go to the App Store, Play Store for Google, and just it's Slack, right? It's very, very simple. Download it. But what it does is it does a couple things. It allows us to be able to kind of have group communication, but it also allows for interactions, right? So Wade was sitting with a client and was having challenges on his computer with doing a managed account proposal. So he gets on the phone with me and he's calling me, he's like, how do I do this? How do I do this? It won't print. And I was trying to tell him, I'm like, I can't figure it out here. So I was able to install an app, which was GoToMeeting. And so from Slack, I was able to go from Slack to GoToMeeting. And now all of a sudden you could see his computer, could walk him through. Same thing with Adrian, we were able to do Google Hangouts. So now if you've ever tried doing any of this stuff with people, it is the most, trying to corral 3 people to jump on Google Hangout or go on any of this stuff, it's like herding cats. It's like, what button? I don't understand. But so we have a centralized place to go. It's a very, very easy place to start, and then they just pick it up. So one of the tools, and just so that you know how to do this, if you go up here to add integration, it'll take you to a website. And then these are all of the app kind of tools that you can add to it, right? You can have your Google Drive, your Google Hangouts. So, and what it'll do is it'll link your account, be able to do the different things. You can put for free up to 10 integrations. You can play with it, right? You just go through, you add the ones that you use. And if you don't know, you play with it a little bit. You're an entrepreneur, you're an owner, this is an opportunity to grow. Again, I don't want this to be overly complicated, but I want you to know the resources and the tools that we've got at our disposal. The other thing that I would do is on your computer, I would go to slack.com/apps, because you can actually you can download the Windows app. So rather than going to the website, there's an app specifically for it. It's a lot cleaner than the website. That gives you the opportunity to do all of the same things, but it's just from an app rather than from the website. You can do it, right? So these are all personal communication that you can do, and you can set up teams, right? So we've got the RVPs, right? So we've got the ability for all the RVPs to be able to communicate, and we just started this, but I get to do this, and anyone who's not an RVP doesn't know anything about it, right? Adrian's got his team on it, and so he's got a Unity private group that he's able to communicate just with his organization on. And they don't have to sign up for anything else. They don't have to do anything else. They don't have to join anything else. It's just there. So they get to be part of the organization plus the communication for their people. Does that make sense? And so I want to make sure that we've got this. If you don't have an invite yet, unfortunately, there's one pain in the rear end about this. And that pain in the rear is that I have to invite everybody. That's the one kind of downfall to the system is you can't invite someone to the team access page. If you invite someone, you create your own page, right? And so what we'll do is in the middle of at the beginning of the meetings, when people go down and they do different things, we'll have a little log that we pass around, and it's give me your email, and then in the middle of the meeting, I'll do the invite. So by the time they leave, you can sign up and be activated for Slack. It's free. It doesn't cost any money. And you can go through, and then the last little piece to this, you've got all these different choices. But you can go to preferences, and you can figure out how you get notifications, right? You want to get never notifications. I would prefer you get all notifications, right? That's the purpose of the app, right? And it just comes up on your phone just like any other notification. It goes in, you can do it on your computer, you can play with this, you can launch it automatically, you can do all the different things that you want to do. So that makes sense? Yeah. Yes.
You just mentioned phone. So I just signed up last night. I can go in on my computer and be like, add mobile or something? Or
it'll automatically do it.
Oh, cool.
So what happens is when you sign up, now the signing in part is, again, there's two weird things to the whole system, right? And this is, look, Tony, like, this is, there are not a lot of people using this. Like this, we are early adopters by definition, right? And so there's not, and they just got valued at $1 billion, like they're raising money, like this is a new app, right? So there's gonna be some bugs, and it's just the way things work. The sign up in process is a weird thing. The first thing it asks is, what's your team's name? Your team name is team-access, like -access, okay? Then it'll ask for your email. You put in your email. It'll link to the email that I send the invitation to. And so that's how it combines them. The first sector, the first categorizer is, what's the team-access, then what's your email with that, and then it'll ask you for a password, and then you've got that whole thing. If you have not signed in for it today, do me a favor, let's try this thing before the end of the meeting. Let's go through, let's spend some time, let's make sure that everybody in the room is signed up and has it kind of through that process, because it'll be an easy process down the line. Any other questions? Okay, excited? And then this is a space for conversations. It's really like, look, we're a support system, right? Let's talk about growth. If you scheduled a couple appointments, right? Robin was getting ready. She went and met a friend of hers to talk about the business. We're meeting with them the next couple of days. She was leaving, and it was 8:30 at night, and she's leaving the house. Look, leaving the house at 8:30 at night isn't a lot of fun when you've had a crazy busy day, right or wrong, right? But we were talking. She's like, I'm gonna slack it. Like there was a sense of community. There was a sense of energy that I watched her get by just saying, hey, I'm gonna go do this, right? So that people know. And that might sound strange. That might sound weird, but like I watched it work for exactly what it is we wanted to do to be able to create that space. So, anyone have any questions? Good, excited, all right. Cool? All right. So, very good. The second thing is, everyone do me a favor. Please look at Ms. Dawn and say thank you.
Thank you.
Please look at Mr. Bob and say thank you for thank you.
Thank you.
Because Mr. Bob let Ms. Dawn really, like, they're gonna, as a partnership, are really kind of investing in us and what's going on, and really is going to take our licensing to the next level. We're going to be running these classes. We're working on the security stuff. We're putting together a game plan where there's going to be a lot of education and teaching, both for the life process and the securities process. Don's a professional teacher, been teaching for 15 years, right? Working with special needs kids for the most part, so y'all are in good hands, right? There's a patience factor that she's got, right? In terms of, but really blessed and really excited about aligned goals and a lot of things that we've been, like, it's one thing, we had to get the big picture done, and then we had to get the big pieces together, and now we're starting to fine tune the thing. We're starting to get the communication. We're starting to get the support systems. We're starting to get the things we need in place to really grow quickly. And so seriously, thank you very, very much for the time and energy. That being said, this is a great time for y'all to go down to the conference room now and to be able to go get ready for the exam. So for those of you that are down in the conference room to go study, this is a great time to go. Thank you. So, all right. So you're too young for the idea. Right? So, really excited about that. You guys have any questions about Slack? Like, it's going to be a really cool thing, right? It's one of those, we've had this type of communication before. Like I was talking with Adrian, and we used to do Sunday night conference calls. I don't know if we're ever going to do Sunday night conference calls. We might do Monday. I don't know what we're going to do. But one of the beautiful things about this is what we'll be able to do is we'll be able to start it. If we end up doing, let's say we did our conference calls, because what we would do back in the day is, tell me what your week looks like. So we'd get 20, 30, 50, 100 people, whatever, on the call, and we could figure out what the numbers are going to do and stuff like that. Well, now we'd be able to have different teams run their calls and then do a leadership call, but we can do it all through Slack. So then it registers who logged in, who was on it. They'd be able to type in their number, so now there's a history of it that is searchable, that's reviewable, to be able to be referenced about. Because it's one thing, I used to have my little binder, and someone would say, okay, I've got 3 firsts this week and 2 go backs, right? And so I'd write it in my book. And then the next week I'd be like, how's your 3 firsts and 2 go backs? They're like, what? Right? And so now we literally be able to scroll back to it and say, so last week we said, just look, every extra little piece of habit that we can create is a very powerful tool. So really excited about that. So let's get ready for the meeting. Got a bunch of stuff that we're going to go through this morning. First thing I wanted to do is Adrian's had some really kind of cool stuff occurring, and we've been working together and really excited about kind of the growth and the processes and the ability. Oh, Tony, you do not have direct deposit. You know how I know that? So fill that out and get that back to the office next week, and then we'll make sure that when they send you checks, they won't send you checks, they'll send you statements, and the checks will go directly into the account. But what I wanted is Adrian to kind of come up and talk about the pieces that are starting to move and kind of the next phase to the credibility piece that's growing and kind of what's happening. So the awesome Adrian some more.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How's everybody? Right. It's funny. I was driving up and I took the old road, and some friends of mine were going to do a bike ride this morning. I'm like, it just feels, kind of funny that they're going and I'm not, but it's okay. So last night when we were talking, they invited me last minute. And I go, you know what? I can't. I already committed to something in the morning and whatever. And I go, what if we go Wednesday? It's like, oh no, we work. Okay, so let's go Thursday. Let's go Friday. Let's go next week. Let's go someday during the week. And I was just messing with them because they were messing with me. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get you back. So you can't go on Wednesday? Why not? So anyway, that was funny because they were laughing at me. So they fun. Anyway, so I'm going to just go over stuff that you guys are already probably doing or implementing or running. And it's funny because somebody sent me a video yesterday, a private video, and I was looking at it. It was pretty cool. It's very, the word emotional, just touching and everything. And I go, I don't know if it was for me that I need to implement that. I don't know if, I guess it's something that has to do with everybody needs a little bit of tension and affection, right? So I don't know if you're sending it to me because I need to be that way, or because I need it, or you would just share it. But I go, thank you. So they're like, I was just sharing. I wasn't talking about you. And then so the conversation got a little weird. So I'm just, sharing right now. I mean, if anything that I say is already been done and you guys are running with it, I'm a little behind, so I'm trying to catch up with everything that is going on, right? So if you're already running it, it's cool because it's. I'll bring a little bit, you bring more, and then together we can definitely, get ahead and go further on this. So, but so every conversation that has that I've been having, it's been good. It's been there's no pressure. It's been comfortable. It's been it's been good. The thought of having conversations with people, it could be a little bit uncomfortable, right? Just to be able to, what am I going to say? How am I going to say it? Am I going to get to them? Am I going to lock them in? So you always battle with that, right? So it starts with your thinking. It's okay, what am I going to do? But once you're sitting with people and talking to them, it's on. I mean, it's fun. I love it. It's the action. So remember a couple of weeks ago, I talked about the lady that came into my office to be able to fix something with their services, and she's talking to me about their kids doing some stuff, right? And I go, well, if they want to sell or offer financial services, that company is great for them because that's all they're going to do, right? Even though we got the best of the best and we can train them on that, but if they want to build a business, a company, this is the place. But we work on it, So anyway, so the next day I get a phone call from an old friend of ours that was in the business before that needed help with some other, with her business. So we were able to talk and we met and, I walked her through and she's just struggling in some areas and, we have a great system that we run really well, right? Any business owner can implement that and they can run and duplicate it. So we gave her that. And she's like, awesome. So I get a phone call this week and I go, hey, you know what? I was sitting down and, thank you for taking the time to talk to me and teach me what you guys are doing. It's awesome. But I want you to meet up with some people. And I go, all right. He goes, yeah, I'll have like 3 or 4 people together for you. And I go, you know what? Now, think about it. If somebody tells you that, you get excited, right? You're like, okay, well, I'm gonna go meet with 3, 4 people. I'm gonna have an audience. I'm going to, something's gonna happen, right? So you get excited, and I go, you know what? Awesome, thank you. So what do? Well, I'm not writing that list because I don't know that, but we have to identify, okay, who are these people, right? And she goes, well, this person, that person, this lady, and is her husband gonna be there? No. Okay, so why don't we do this? Why don't we start with one? You can sit with me, and then we're able to talk to whoever it is. So being that she is an ally, right? She's locked in, she believes, and she was able to set it up for me yesterday. So all I had to do is just show up, right? The lady was there, and we're able to help her out and, talk to her about the business, the opportunity, that whole thing. She's doing the business with her. But there was no confrontation. There was no, your system is not going to work, mine is better, or there was nothing like that. All they said is, you know what, thank you very much. We learned some great valuable things today, and we're on a path because they're thinking it's make money. They're going to make a lot of money and go out and spend a lot of money. And I go, that's great. I mean, that's what the rest of the world does, but it's not what you make, it's what you keep, right? You want to sell your business in the future. You're young. I mean, what would you like to do? So she had a game plan, and her game plan was, she's 20. By 30, 35, she wants to be able to just travel. And I go, well, if you spend everything you make, how's that going to happen? Well, my business is going to be working. I mean, yes, it is. That's true. But what if you had an extra $10 million just sitting there? And she goes, okay, so what do I need to do? So develop some habits, right? Habits that we don't have. Habits that you're not learning. So it was a very, very smooth, simple conversation. And again, and I'm just sharing because I didn't have to close. I didn't have to. I just say, look, this is where we are, and she's like, okay, let me get with that. Also, so that was kind of cool, right? At the end, again, they thank me and they go, okay, I need you to talk to some other people in the business that are spenders. I go, okay, that's fine. So we're providing a service, but we're not providing a service for the sake of providing a service. We're educating and we're opening up the doors for opportunity and building a company, and they understand that because they're building their own company. They're just doing it a little bit different, right? So they understand that, and so they're like, okay, I got 3, 4 people that I want you to meet, and all of them are in their 20s. I'm like, great. Now, here's the thing. When I was having that conversation with her, you know, we're putting up a game plan for her to get financially secure, right? So we're asking, you know, what percentage of what you make you be able to set aside. She goes, well, I can do it 20% because I'm 20, I don't have responsibility. So we went from 20 to 5, right? So because she started opening up, it's just funny how things happen. And, you know, when you're talking to people about real stuff that matters, they just opened up and they allow you to help them with what they have rather than me saying, no, you're young, you have to do this. But she opened up and she goes, okay, right now I'm just making building study. I go, that's great, keep it up. We're gonna be able to increase. And so that's why she started thinking about other people. And I go, and she goes, well, it's a couple of people that are not in the business that they'll be great in your business. I'm like, cool. Anyways, that was kind of cool, I think. At the same time, I was able to meet with my nephew who's been in the business, have not been able to get ahead, and you know, I'm gonna finish school and everything, and he just got a promotion. He works out here, and you know, he's happy about the position where he's at, but now he's not able to. He's got 3 kids, very young, and is not able to control his time when they need him. Now he's seen me for the last 12 years being able to be there for my kids and being able to just, you know, run to school if I need to be there, being able to just attend every event and not brag about it, but again, share. And being able to just do what I want, right? And so he was asking me, he goes, Uncle, I need to go full time and I need to quit my job like right now. And so he called me, right? He goes, I need to talk to you, and he told me that, and I go, okay, so what's going on? You know, he said that, you know, the position was offered to him more money and he loves it. He knows that he's not going to get to where he wants to go. He's got 3 kids and he understands that it's not going to deliver. And I could have said, I wanted to say, okay, let's go, let's rock and roll, because I know he's a worker. I know he's going to go all out. I know he's going to go get licensed. I know he's going to talk to the whole world. I know what he does, right? So it would have been very simple. It's like, okay, let's do it right now. Call him up and say, you know what? I'm done. Let's do it. I got your back. Don't worry about it. So we could do that, right? Anyone can do it, but we don't know what's going to happen, right? We know where that can go. So I go, okay, let me ask you a question. Are you doing it out of desperation? What are you doing? Why would you want to do that? So he goes, well, you know, I've been thinking, it's not what I want is just not going to deliver. So he went on saying the same thing. And I go, okay, why don't we do this? And again, it was a long conversation, but the bottom line is I was able to take him to a place where he can focus on it. Rather than and again, it was a conversation of, you know what, your job is paying you to learn this business and to start building it. Why don't we focus on step 1 is get your freaking license? I go, that's what you got to do right now, because I'm not going to train you if you don't have a license. Yeah, I will, but I'm going to make the money, and we don't want that. We want to be able to get you. And you know, so it was a long conversation. The bottom line, he goes, okay. He had a lot of questions, and the bottom line, he goes, you know what? I am going to be done taking the test by October 1st. I go, that's right, buddy, because a year ago, that's when you came in. So your time is going to expire. So you know, it's just conversations that are very comfortable. I didn't have to challenge him. I didn't have to say, you know what, I told you that if you did this, you would be in a different position. No, go take care of your family. That's what you need to do. You got 3 kids and you're a big time spender. I go, you got to not walk away from your job, your career right now. And so he was like, all right, so we put a game plan. He's going to be licensed by October 1st. And like I said, it was just a simple, there's a place to take him conversation rather than challenge him and being able to confront something that maybe he doesn't want to be confronted. Or maybe he just, but put him in a place where I know he can focus 100%. And by the time he, you know, October comes, he's going to be licensed. So that was, again, that was kind of awesome. So every conversation has been like, okay, there's a place to put people rather than me putting there, there's a place where they want to be at and they can start with. Now, funny thing, I was telling Brett on Tuesday, the church that we go to, they, you know, they know what we do. They think we know what we do, but they don't really know what we do, right? So I've been having conversations with the pastor, and my intention was not to get in there and like go do business and do anything like that. But obviously for different reasons, right? But recruit people to become an ally, just like they do, just the way they think, right? We think the same way, because what we're doing is not bad, right? What they do is not bad either. I mean, it's all in perspective, right? But me having conversations, being with the pastor and talking about it is, and so Tuesday, a month ago, they invited me to their mastermind meeting. You know, just people in the business leaders that come in the church and talk about what's going on, what can they do, and just different things. So they invited me. The first one, I just kind of wasn't, just kind of watching everybody what they were saying, and they invited me to Tuesday, and it was the same conversation that they were struggling with last month, and it was new people come in, they fill out a form, and now there's a follow-up system after that. And a lot of people that are coming in are not coming back the second time. They're not revisiting. I guess they call them visitors, right? They're not revisiting. And they were asking themselves why. They were talking to the people in charge. Why is it that they're not coming back? Why is it that we're losing people? Because there's a lot of people coming in every Sunday and on different days of the week, but they're not coming back. And nobody had an answer. We're like, well, we've been calling, leaving messages, texting, right? And all kinds of things. Posting on Facebook, whatever. But his answer was, nobody had an answer to it. Nobody had a structured answer. So, okay, we're doing step 1 and step 2 and step 3, and this is where we're losing, right? Nobody had that. Like in sport, right? You know where you fell and why you lose. And wouldn't it be the same thing in an organization like that? But they're not. So what he said is that, he goes, I'm thinking about let's have 4 people focus on the follow-up. He goes, 2 people can be, I don't know, I guess 2 people that don't have personality on the phone. And the other people with great personality on the phone. And so I was just, they were going back and forth talking about it. It's a great idea, maybe, I don't know, what about this, what about that? So I was just talking about it. And I'm like, okay, maybe they'll ask me. So finally at the end, they asked me, so what do you think? I go, let me ask you a question. Why would you want to focus on 2 people with personality? And well, there's people that can actually talk on the phone and they can connect, and, so he had the right thinking, but he goes, so we can do that. The other 2 can listen until they learn. And I go, you know what, that's great, but why limit yourself with only the people that are able to talk on the phone? What if they get sick or they go to a different church? Then you have 2 people that are not able to do that. And he didn't have an answer for that. I go, let's not think about limiting ourselves. Why don't we focus on training these people? Because if they knew what to say, they will say it. Perhaps, I go, you ask the lady that was here, I go, you asked her and she did, no offense, but you didn't have an answer to be able to say, you know what, we're doing what we need to do, and you couldn't answer that question. I go, I'm not offending you, I hope you're not, I'm just bringing something that is important, because if 15 people are coming in on a Sunday and no one's coming back, I go, there's an issue. We're not gonna grow like that, right? You don't have an answer. What are the chances of the other 3 people having an answer to be able to do that? It's not gonna happen, right? I go, why don't we figure out what kind of system do we want to run, and how do we want to call these people? What do we want to do? I go, look, I'm not going to tell you what you guys can do, but I ran the same system for 12 years. I go, we brought people in, and we expect them to come back because the opportunity is great. In my business, that's what we did, because that's what I did. I showed up, and I go, this is the best opportunity in the world to start part-time, so I'm going to go back. And I was at a place that I was looking to make a change. I go, that was me. But there was another 20 people in the same meeting that never came back. Just because Adrian and Rocio came back doesn't mean that the other people are not looking for it. I go, there's got to be a place in the system to be able to do that. And I go, the same thing is happening right now. So I can relate with what we're doing right now. I go, I'm not involved, but maybe I can offer, maybe I can help. And he goes, okay, so what do you suggest? I go, well, one of the things that I do, I go, instead of waiting for people to come back. I call them up, identify what the situation is, why is it that they're not coming back? And I go, don't even worry about coming back. I go, coming back with you not being, you being physically here, but not mentally or spiritually here is not going to serve anything. And what I would do is, if I were those 2 people, 4 people, is go meet with them. Find out people, I mean, there's a reason why they're not coming back. It's not us. Something is going on in their lives. And you can't do that on the phone. I go, you got to be able to meet and have coffee. I'm willing to have 3 to 4 coffees per week with people that are showing up, new people that are not coming back. I'm willing to do that. And they looked at each other like oh, that's a good idea. I thought about that. Okay. Why wouldn't you do that? I mean, it's you're in the business of growing. Why don't we invest, 30 minutes a day, 4 times a week to be able to do that? And they're like, okay, so can you do that? I go, yeah, I mean, that's how I build my company. I go, I don't expect everybody to come to me. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I want that, but what about go meet with them? And so that was, okay, so that was number 1. Number 2 is like, okay, so when we call him on the phone, what are we going to say? He asked me, right? And I go, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. But I know that if we listen to them, if we instead of texting, we call them up and find out where they are, they're going to tell you what you need to hear to be able to figure out what we need to do next. And he goes, can you call it? Can you call him? I go, yeah, give me a list and I'll be able to. I mean, look, I wasn't bragging. We've been there. We've been there because we feel that we have the greatest part-time opportunity in the world, and then people should be open to be able to come back, right? How many people say that we're going to be here this morning? 1 or 2, right? I mean, but the reality is that people have things to do, and we don't want to force them to do anything that they're not ready to do. So I go, look, let's give me the list. Let's figure out, let's identify them, right? Let's figure out where they are and who they are and where they live. They might not even know a car. I don't know that. And it might be driving, they might be taking the bus from Burbank. We don't know that. We're making assumptions and we haven't even identified where these people are. And I wouldn't mind driving a couple times to Burbank to go meet with them. And the pastor's wife was like, well, I'm busy and this and that. And I go, I understand that. That's what we're here for. And so the bottom line, he goes, okay, why don't we do this? Sunday is going to come, right? We're going to get the list together. I want you to get the papers. The lady that was sitting there, she's the one that gets the papers. And look, don't take me wrong. There's nothing wrong that they're doing. It's just that when you don't have a system, you're desperate. You just try to do anything. And when anything works, you think that anything is going to continue to work, right? And that's what happens. And so I wasn't challenging this lady. I mean, maybe it sounded like it was. And yet I talked to her. I go, look, I wasn't by any means. I'm trying to help the growth. And there's an issue here. He's like, no, you're doing great. I mean, thank you. I mean, if you can take this, I'm not comfortable with the phone. So he wasn't talking about me with the responsibility and I mean, with the personality. And so I go, no. Don't worry. Don't even worry about that. I go, look, you get me the papers on Sunday. On Monday night, we'll get together, or Monday during the day. We'll figure out what the best time to call. We can do conference, or we can get together and spend 15 minutes just calling people to figure out where they are. And she goes, well, that's what we're doing. And I go, don't worry about it. We'll figure out what we need to say to be able to go meet with people and bring them. And so it was great. So after that, the pastor called me and like, you know what, thank you. It was great to have somebody that can actually not necessarily care, but have an answer to be able to help us grow. Because I figure that we're doing a job, we're providing, but for some reason we don't have a system. We're not structured to have people come back. And I think that's the future of the church. That's where we're going to grow, because we've been here too long and we haven't moved. So thank you for doing that. And by the way, I want you to talk on Sunday morning at the service. I'm like, wow, no, it's just not going to do much. So no, I just want you to make announcements, and I want you to start. People need to hear something different. People need to start hearing another voice. And I go, well, okay, I'll make the announcements, but let's just keep it that way. No, he goes, he told me other things. He goes, look, I'm not taking you away from what you're doing right now. You're doing a great job, but I figure you can help us grow here. And that's where struggle is. And if you can implement that here, if you can help us with that, he goes, everything else that you want is gonna, he said it differently, right? Everything else that you want is gonna get taken care of. And I go, okay, I can do the announcements. I mean, that's as far as I'm gonna go, the announcements. And he goes, thank you. And then, you know, every day he sent me a message to be able to thank me because he said that when people go in, they just figure out what's there for them to do. And if he doesn't give them an assignment, they don't do it. He goes, you're going a little bit out of your way to be able to not challenge us a little bit, but be able to help us with the growth. And I think that if we implement what you're talking about, he goes, 2016 is going to be our year of explosion. I'm like, that's awesome. But again, I just wanted to share that with you because we're in the business of making a difference. You know, we're in the business of impacting people. And if we can do that here, we can do it anywhere. And if we can do it anywhere, we can definitely do it here 100 times more. So thank you. Hope that helps.
So that was phenomenal. I want to draw some connections because sometimes it's hard to stand up and both tell a story and brag, but not brag, and kind of cast a vision. So it's a little bit like, so I'm gonna brag on you a little bit, but in a, why are we doing this? And so again, and dude, okay. One, creating a safe space for people to hear is a really difficult thing to do. And right, your ability, and I'm just going to give public, like your ability to start the conversation the way you did and to be able to give the space for somebody to be able to know is phenomenal. But I want to go through a couple things. First of all, I want to make sure that we get the connections of what's going on, because how he ended the conversation, how he started the conversation, the exact same thing. Okay, he started the conversation by talking about he met a client who reconnected him with an old associate who was interested in talking about business, not our business, business. They turned to Adrian as an entrepreneur and as an expert. And Adrian spent probably 2 to 3 hours with an old associate just talking about business, sharing guidance and understanding and values and all this other stuff. Why? To re-recruit them into the business? No. Because what Adrian's understanding is 2 things are happening. One, the most important asset in Adrian's life right now is his skill. And so any conversation that he can have, if his skill is his priority, he gets to practice over and over and over again. The number one objective is to Adrian, if you ask him right now, the number one thing for the rest of this year is grow my skill. Get really, really good at being able to leverage the tools that we've got, be able to articulate what's going on, and be able to communicate and connect what I know to be true to other people. Because that's a skill. When that skill is your priority, the movement of your skill is your result. So now you get to get excited about that result regardless of anything else, and he's moving his business. From week to week, over the last 90 days, Adrian has dramatically increased his skill of taking what we're doing, emotionalizing it, understanding it, and putting it through, and then starting to be able to articulate, right? It's different. It's a different philosophy. It's a different approach, right? What takes you 3 hours, pretty soon will take you 30 minutes. Pretty soon will take you 3 minutes, right? It doesn't take long when you're really clear. But if you're not willing to go through the 3 hours, you're never going to get to the 3 minutes. Does that make sense? But I talked to Adrian after this conversation, and he was fired up about the opportunity to be able to share, to be able to connect, to be able to talk, and we were celebrating dude, your skill is increasing. That was it. He's like, well, this might happen and this might happen. From this being the objective, grow my skill and add value. Not anything else. From that, just wrote a sale, picked up some mutual funds, got 3 or 4 more recommendations, and 2 to 3 people who aren't in the business that someone who's in a business just said, these people aren't in my business, but you need to talk to them about the business. This is an inevitable byproduct of building allies and moving them to advocates. If you build allies as the objective, not as the manipulative tool, not as the, yeah, this is what I'm going to do, but I really, really want this, truly, emotionally, and that's why prioritizing your skill and locking in your allies are aligned. Because if you make your skills the priority, you get to attack that and feel like, man, I'm actually growing, so that you don't have to feel like you're not growing when you're just spending time. Does that make sense? Because if all you're doing is locking in allies, locking in allies, locking in allies, and nothing's happening, then it's easy to go, well, I've been doing this forever and nothing's happened. And now you lose the energy source. But if you dramatically increase your skill as the priority and lock in allies as the objective, you have aligned focus. Does this make sense? Now all of a sudden, there's the opportunity of an explosion occurring inside, but this is an inevitable byproduct, not an objective. Does that make sense? Now, but it took time. It took upfront time. Now, so I don't want you to miss that, because some of you are starting to grow your skill and you're looking at your numbers and your results and you're looking at someone else's numbers and results and you're like, oh, right? Adrian started the meeting by saying, look, I'm behind some of you. I can't worry about being behind some of you. I can only understand I am where I am and attack where I am. And enjoy it and be enthusiastic about me being where I am. It's freaking unbelievable. Okay, so is that good? Now, the other thing is he talked to me about the pastor, and this fired me up. And again, I don't think he did his justice. Like the story he told me, like that was good, but like he doesn't mind bragging a little bit to me. To y'all, he's like trying to be all cool, right? But he's like, no, but like the ability to raise his hand and go to the pastors, because I know this is other guy. Why are we limiting our growth just on personality? Like I know that was the set. Y'all understand that there's no one in the world that has that conversation? Because everyone thinks winning's about personality. The ability to confront someone you respect's thinking and not confront them as people, but confront their thinking is a tremendous skill. And then to be able to have the answer is unbelievable. But as he's going through and he's explaining this, the pastor's wife said, this is what Adrian told me, and he had to make it here. He's like, wow, that's going to take a lot of time. And the measure of cost associated with time is where the limitation is. Because when skill and allies aren't your objective and results are, what happens is you're constantly undermining the growth. You're constantly second guessing and questioning. And if you second guess and question, you're going to come from a different emotional state. And if you come from an different emotional state, I just believe this with everything in me, and maybe it's just the crystals and pyramids, but you know what? I just think we attract what we attract, right? It's not what happens to us, it's what we do with what happens to us. And if we come from a bad strain of order, if we come from a lack point of view, we're going to respond from a lack point of view. It's just inevitable, right? So Adrian's like, yeah, it's going to take time, but what else are we going to do? Now, I want to make sure this is crystal clear, because Adrian's been front-loading time. He front-loaded time here, and now with the church, he's going to front-load time. And so it's easy to go, Adrian, you're front-loading time. What are you doing? But the last thing he said, which he didn't tell me until right now, is that Adrian's now going to start speaking at church. So here's what's ultimately going to happen. Adrian's credibility is rising. They're starting to turn to Adrian to be able to grow his skill, and then he's going to start implementing growth principles to them. What is he going to introduce? When he talks to me, he goes, I go, what are you going to do? Well, when we meet, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write why down. Like, damn right you are, right? The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get the scouting report down. Darn right you are. And so what Adrian's going to be able to do is he's going to be able to go to his church, and he's going to be able to teach them why in the scouting report. Well, Brett, that's our principles of Primerica. No, our goal is to close the access gap in this country by any means necessary. By all means necessary. Provide the tools and resources to the people in this country that desperately need it, because you're going to increase value and credibility, and great things are going to happen. Well, as Adrian introduces this to a group of 100, 150 people, right? You think his credibility is going to, Adrian, where'd you learn this? All of a sudden, the stuff we talked about last time, I met a guy who, right? We started to construct who, and now all of a sudden, it's not, I don't get validation from figuring out this myself. It's I got access to, I'm leveraging experts. He'll teach the 4 principles. His credibility goes up. You don't think that there's going to be a, so how do you apply this to your life? And now he's able to go to the economic piece, and now there's a captive environment where his church is growing, and he has an opportunity to grow his skill of learning how to communicate these 4 principles to an entire group of people, right? So his priority is skill, but his opportunity is exploding. Oh, so you're really doing it because you want to get in front of the church and recruit other people at church. No, we want to grow our skill and lock in allies because the growth is inevitable byproducts. We don't know where they're going to come from. But we know that the pastor of his church is friend with 20 other pastors. 20 other pastors. If the 20 other pastors knew how to grow a church, wouldn't they be teaching their friend, his pastor? So since they're not teaching his pastors, there's a good chance they don't know how to get wide, run the scouting report, and the 4 principles. You think Adrian's going to have some influence and be able to communicate with folks that desperately need it? Explosions. Because skills and allies are the priority. It's happening. Make sense? And I have this conversation because we're all at varying degrees. Some of you know this really well. Some of you haven't figured out how to own it yet. Some of you are trying to figure out if you're going to. Some of you are waiting for it to be mastered. Look, you know what you got to do? You got to start. Y'all don't know where Adrian and I were 6 months ago before we're like, you have no idea the journey we've gone on this year. It's been unbelievable. But here's what I can promise you. The growth that this man's made this year makes all of this so obvious it's ridiculous. Because he's had to confront himself. Now, I'm so proud to be in business. I'm proud to be in business with all of you, right? This isn't the lack of anyone else, but I'm talking about you. But I'm watching, and I want to make sure that this last little piece is point, because his pastor asked him, well, how are we going to do this? And Adrian's like, well, I don't know, but we're going to figure it out. But yesterday afternoon, at 9:44 a.m. yesterday, that was the 3rd, no, 2 days ago was the 3rd, Adrian sends me a Slack text. This is why I love this, because it's right here, right? But here's Adrian's question. He's like, quick question. When you, all right, quick question. I'll read it this way, but I want you to say, when they ask what you do and we answer a game plan for people to get financially secure and a path to financial freedom, if they ask what does that mean or what kind of game plan or what's the path, you know, what's your fastest elevator pitch? Y'all understand? Here's a vice president that we've been going through that can figure this out or do all this other stuff, but it's not about ego. It's not about validation. He's like, hey, you know how I know he's getting this question? Because he got into a conversation with somebody. And he's not the only one that asked, but I answered to him the same way I answered to anybody, right? I said, that's a great question. Something like this. We realize that most people don't have access to a financial education or the tools to create wealth. We wanted to build a company focused on solving that problem. We also realized that if financial freedom was our main goal, that planning would really take 2 to 3 generations, you know, of that real need. If we wanted a 1-generation plan, the only way to do that is to create, the only way to create a 1-generation plan is through ownership. We created an entrepreneurial path that can help Main Street families learn how to grow a company for ownership without having to be responsible for every aspect. In reality, that's what I spend most of my time doing, working with entrepreneurs and teaching them how to leverage the systems we have and how to build a support system so that we can reach the 70 million families that need access to the information. Now, it's a little word, but Adrian, and he's going to take that, but that's my emphasis. See, I actually want someone that go, wait a second, what do you mean by? That's the goal. Because that's how we create a conversation. Everything you're working with Robin in the communication is we're asking and creating open spaces. In the past, we teach people how to make and save money, but I created closed conversations. I didn't want the conversation because we didn't have the answers. I'm not looking for the perfect words. We have a mission. The mission is 70 million of us are stuck. We're taking on the world alone, and we get validation from coming up with the ideas, whether they work or not. We constantly start over. We get focused on our actions when we're motivated. And in chaos, we shut the world off. And those 4 things cost us so much we can't even measure it. And so the part that I was excited about was two parts. One, I was fired up that this young man asked me that question. Because 8 years ago, there wasn't space for that question. 8 years ago, the validation was Adrian's an RVP and I'm an RVP. You don't show that you don't know an answer to that. I'm so proud of you and what we've created. The second is the fact that we had an answer fired me up because I wasn't scared of the question. Because if I didn't have this answer, I wouldn't create the space for this kind of question. Now, Adrian has the ability to take what I'm saying, do it, not do it, think that he's already done it, figure out, do it somewhere else, create his own words. See, I said something like this. This is how I would phrase it with my personality and the way I communicate. But this is what we're trying to get across. Right? We talk about how do we get better and how do we grow. Does that make sense? So, just, y'all excited? So, and look, you know, grow. We all have great things. We're going to communicate every week. We're going to use our commercials and our opportunities to do this. So, all right. So, good? All right, change gears. Okay, we're going to do some work. Okay. So, we're going to work on skills for about 30 minutes. All right. So I've got to teach. It's funny. I got a reminder this week. I remember, and I told you guys the story, but taking BP and Ty to the bookstore, and they grabbed a book and then they put it inside out, backwards, and upside down. I'm like, oh my God, we got to teach them everything, right? And it was like that thing, and I'm like, okay. I was reminded that we've got to teach a lot of things. Is it cold in here?
But am I the only one? You're not cold.
That's right. Robin, I have red stuff going through my
Right? So,
Blue.
so what I want to spend some time on is we're going to talk about the Rule 72, but I'm not going to teach the Rule 72. You know why? Because out of everything we do, the Rule 72 is the one thing we shouldn't teach. Like, not that it's not important, but after you've seen it once, you should figure it out. It's not an overly complicated concept. But what I realized, because I had a couple people ask me for some help on this, that what we might want to do is teach people how to learn things using an incredibly simple concept so that it's not confusing. So that's my goal this morning. Now let's see if I can pull this off, because sometimes I think about really great ideas at 3:30 in the morning when one of the kids is going. And then I wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh, I think that was good. We'll see. So here's what this morning is going to be about. Because how the Rule 72 works is you take the number 72 and you divide it by any interest rate, and that'll tell you how many years it takes for that money to double. That doesn't, there's not a lot of complication to that. Right? Now it's incredibly powerful, but it's not all that complicated. Right? Like 72 divided by 1 is 72. So it takes, if you have $10,000 at the end of a year, or at the end of, how many years it'll take for that money to double? About 72. So here's what we're going to do this morning. You all got a piece of paper and a pen? Yeah. 72 divided by 1. And what we're going to do this morning for about 20 minutes is we are going to do the math. Because I actually want you to see the impact of this. What's up, Camacho? Perfect time.
Yeah.
You're going to want to watch the first half. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. 72 divided by 1 equals what?
72.
72. All right. So I got a compound calculator from the App Store. $10,000 at 1% interest rate in 72 years, compounded annually, will grow to $20,470.99. So do me a favor and write that in. It'll look 72 divided by 1 is 72 years, 20,000. So what does this mean? $10,000 at a 1% rate of return. Is that essentially a doubling?
Yeah.
You think about it I want you to think about the scope of this. Over 72 years, it's plus or minus $500. Like, that's remarkable.
Yeah, I didn't really,
Well, inflation, that it's worth, but just as the math to be able to explain it. So now, 72 divided by 2 equals what?
36.
36. I did 35. Huh? 36. I don't have to be able to spell or do math. Right? So, divided by 2 over 36 years is $20,398.87. Would that still constitute over a 36-year period? Are we plus or minus for it? Like, it's a pretty good tool that starts to say, okay, so 72 divided by 3 equals 24. Well, $10,000 set at a 3% rate of return for 24 years is $20,327.94. Isn't this remarkable?
Yeah.
That you can literally take a constant like 72, divide it by 1, 2, or 3, get that, and that's the actual compound dollar figure? Like, that's remarkable. Now, some of you look like, wait, it's not exactly 20,000. I thought it was like this is an estimate, right? So it's giving an approximation of what's going on, right? So, but it can't work all the way through. So 72 divided by 4 is 18. $10,000 at a 4% rate of return for 18 years is $20,258.17. But you look confused.
No, I'm not confused. It's making sense.
Okay. Not confused on the concept, but your head's.
I'm a little confused. I'm staying with you though. I'm
Okay.
with you.
72 divided by 5 is 14.4. $10,000 at a 5% rate of return grows to $20,189.52. If we had a 5% CD and we kept $10,000 in there for 14 years and 5.5 months, it would be worth $20,189. Well, we could have figured that out without a calculator. $72 divided by 6 equals 12. $20,121.96. Did we need a compound calculator to figure that out? No. 72 divided by 6 equals 12. $10,000 in 12 years will become $20,000. $72 divided by 7 is 10.28. Can't work on the 2 8s, right? $20,047.73. Can't work anymore. 72 divided by 8 is 9. $19,090.05. $19,990.05. Sorry. 72 divided by 9 equals 8. $19,925.63. $72 divided by 10, 7.2. $19,862.20. $72 divided by 11 is 6.5. $19,700. And 72 divided by 12 is 6. It's $19,738.23. Guys, I don't care what interest rate someone gives you. You have the ability in any conversation to figure out what the impact of their money is going to be. When we walk into the bank or we talk to somebody about savings, no one ever talks to us about this. They only talk to us about this. Why? Because if you go to the bank right now and you start a savings at 0.01%, who in God's name is going to put, this is 720 years. Who's going to sign up for that account? But we don't spend interest rate. We spend dollars. Our job, our ability is to make this real. The Rule 72 was a tool that we had to make a concept that seems daunting, that seems out there, that seems out of our wheelhouse as people, and takes it from something scary to something that's incredibly real. When we talk about now, I have a question. That took us how long? 8 minutes? 5 minutes? Will you ever not understand the Rule 72 again? It took 5 minutes, not 5 years, not 6 weeks. So now when we go to the presentation and we say, okay, 72 divided by 6 is 24. If we start with $10,000 in 24 years, how much money are they going to have? $20,000. How do we know that? Because 72 divided by 3 in 24, it's going to grow. Well, Brad, it's really 20,003. In 48 years, it's going to be 40 grand. Why do we talk about this? When I ask the question, because I do this on every appointment, if someone at 16 years old gave you $10,000 and now 40, 50 years later, if you're getting ready to retire and you got 40 grand, how excited are you? I ask that every time, and I get one of two answers. What do you think one of the two answers is?
Not so excited.
Not so excited. Do you know I probably get not so excited less than 20% of the time? Do you know what I get probably 80% of the time?
That's not bad.
That's not bad. How in God's name could someone say that's not bad? Because they've never seen this in their life. And so the idea of $10,000 becoming $40,000 and them not having to do anything is freaking awesome. But you've been here and you run this and you get so familiar with it that you think that this is going to be different. So people don't even understand the impact. That's what we're doing. When we talk about access to the education, it's exposing thinking first. This is a tool we get to use to expose people's limited thinking. But if we don't understand the limiting thinking, we don't get to expose other people's thinking. Don't go, really? You don't think that? It's not about making them feel stupid. It's about creating a safe space for them to learn something. There's a huge difference between making them feel stupid and creating a safe space for them to learn something. That's a skill. When the pastor said, well, we have two people with a personality and two people who aren't, let's just go, because this is the part you didn't say, which I like, it's like, let's just go find people with the personality. That's a limiting place. No, let's create the space where people who don't know how to communicate can learn how to communicate. That's what we're trying to do. Now, $10,000 in 8 years, 72 divided by 9 is 8. 72 divided by 9 is 8. $10,000 becomes $19,925. Is that roughly double? That means it's going to grow to 20, 40, 80, 160, 320, $640,000. Does 640 sound a little bit better than 40? Yeah. Now, do most people believe that's possible? No, not right there. That's not our job. Our job isn't to celebrate the 640. We're in the education process. So we have to teach this. So we say, look, what are most of us taught? We take our money down to the bank. The problem is they don't leave it there. They take it out and invest it. They go make $640,000 on our money and pay us $40,000. Now, do you think most people accept that principle as truth? Yes. And if they fight it going, well, look, all we do is deposit in the banks and then they lend it back to us on our credit cards. They give us 0.1%, they charge us 19. So now all of a sudden they're like, wait a second. So if we could take our money and put it exactly where they do, because do you know who the largest investor in mutual funds are? Banks and insurance companies. Why? Because for almost no money, they get professional money management with limited liability on your money and it just sits there. So if we could put it exactly where they do, could that make an impact on your life? This is an impact tool, but it starts with the belief and the understanding. Now, how long would it take, how many times would you and I have to practice this out loud on a piece of paper to where we can actually tell that story relatively effective? 3 million? 30,000? How about 30? In a weekend, could we get this down? Maybe 2 weeks? I don't know how long it took. This took 8 minutes, and you'll never have to do the math, but you can get the compound calculator, you get the concept. This took 5 minutes to understand. This might take 3 hours to master. But I showed that list last week, 2 weeks ago, a month ago. It's called starting somewhere. Picking an impact and charging. Growing your skill. Now, guess what? Adrian has a luxury. You know what Adrian's luxury is? He gets to grow his skill on developing the relationships. You know why? Because he's really good at the Rule 72. Because he's been doing it a long time. And everyone's like, well, I want to get there. Well, great. Start here. You can get good at this, but get good at that. Does this make sense? But does this take forever? It's funny. I'm trying to access all this stuff. I'm like, okay, because I know how I'd have been at Sandlot. And I'm like, no, I gotta be positive. I gotta take this picture and what's going on. And I genuinely mean it. I am so excitedly frustrated with some of y'all. In a positive way. Because it's time we move the ball. I'm not mad, I'm not angry. Before I was mad and angry. A lot. I'm not mad and angry at all. But I'm like, you know what? It's not okay anymore. We got things to do. Every one of us could have experiences that Adrian's talking about in our businesses. Do you understand if all of us had those types of situations, the level of explosion 2016 looks like? And all it takes is one. Sue's got a lot of stuff going. Wade's got a bunch of stuff going. We got a bunch of stuff going. Now all of a sudden there's 3 or 4 folks with a bunch of stuff. Tony's got a team that's growing. All of a sudden we're like, man, Alita's got a bunch of things that are starting to move. All of a sudden Camacho's got, and now all of a sudden there's 8, 10, 12, 15, 18, 20 people that are blowing up at different pieces, all jumping on Slack, letting people know what's going on, feeding the system, and we've got momentum. It's right here. But now we have a way to make sure that you never are confused about the Rule 72. But guess what? Dollar cost averaging works exactly the same. The theory of decreasing responsibility works exactly the same way. This account works exactly the same way. Getting a commitment works exactly the same way. Running an F&A works exactly the same way. The house works exactly the same way. Right? The 4 principles work exactly the same way. And the access gap works exactly the same way. And so we'll break it down and we'll make sure that we've got the tools and resources in front of us to really drive this home. So that was my That was our skill. You all feel better? Y'all got more skill now? Okay. So, the next person I'm really excited to have is Rob. We got a bunch of really, really cool stuff that's working within the relationship stuff and some really, really cool stuff that she's got going and working on. And so, yeah, so Rob.
Wow, what a fun morning. Dude, Adrian, so exciting. I also had a pretty interesting conversation this week. So I left the house at 8:20 at night. I do not want to leave the house. But I went to meet with a new friend of mine who's a mom of multiples also. So she has twins. They're about 3 weeks older than our twins. She also has a 4-year-old daughter. And she sent me a text that day and said, from work, I'm at work, I'm crying. I need to find something different. We have to talk. And I was like, sweet, right? I got the text, just what I wanted. I'm totally going to coffee with you. So set up the coffee, and she rarely leaves the house after work. But we committed to this, we set up the coffee, and I went in, and part of me was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get her IBA tonight. It was dial it back, sweet tree. This is not what this is about. This is about locking in an ally. And so I sat down and we started talking, and the first thing she said is, I want to know everything that you do because I need something different. And I said, slow down, right, in my head. And I was like, well, so tell me what's going on. She started talking about work and about how hard it is at home and how her 4-year-old daughter is acting out. And I said, well, why is she acting out? And she said she's acting out because I don't have time with her alone anymore because of the twins. And it got so bad this morning that the entire house was in tears. She was in tears, her husband was in tears, kid was in tears, babies were in tears. It's so bad. I have to do something. I gotta quit my job. And I said, okay, so it sounds like this is a pretty tough situation. So let's talk a little bit more about what Layla's going through and what are some of the options. And we talked for about an hour. We talked about some other things. And then she got back to, I got to quit my job. And I said, okay, so let's say you quit your job. How would you be spending your time differently to help Layla? And she said, oh, well, I mean, Layla's in school all day. So I wouldn't be spending time with her during the day. And when she got home from school at night, I would be with her and the twins. So it's not that different. She said, but if I was home, then I could have a nanny in the afternoons instead of spending for the nanny all day long. And then I could actually have the nanny take care of the twins and I'd have some time with my daughter. And I said, okay, so the key solution, that one of the solutions, a potential solution you've come up with is if you had help in the afternoon when you were home, after all the kids got home, you could spend some quality time with Layla and that could make a difference. And she said, yeah. And I said, I've got a question. How much are you paying your nanny? And we talked about that. And at the end of the day, for the 4 hours in the afternoon, it would be $44 for the nanny to stay so that she'd have that time. And today, with what's going on in their lives, she doesn't have that $44. And I said, okay, so if we could do something that would allow you to have that $44, not replace your income. And she's an incredible contract negotiator in aviation, highly specialized, well paid, and very important for paying the bills and the mortgage on the house they just bought. If we could do something so that you stayed in your job and your job provided your cover fire, but you were able to get the $44, not thousands of dollars, but the $44 a week to have one afternoon with Layla, could that make a difference? I was like, yeah, that can make a difference. And so I got a question. Are you open to an opportunity where we could actually talk about how to make that happen within the context of what works for you and your family. Because now I understand the time constraints that you're under. And she said, yes. Sign me up. Slow down. You gotta meet my husband. Okay. So it was interesting in that conversation that struck me. So I was listening to Adrian tell his story. And I thought about my story. And there's something very, very, very similar in our stories. Do you hear anything similar in our stories? Family was similar in our stories. What else?
We were both listening.
We were both listening. And we both said 6 words. We said the same 6 words, each of us, to the person we were talking to. In addition to listening, what did we say to them?
You said, in my own words, is hold on, not yet. We're not rushing. We don't want to rush you or expose you.
So we were thinking about that, right? Both of us said, let me ask you a question. How many times have you heard Brett say, let me ask you a question? Let me ask you a question. Both Adrian and I got to a place we never would have with the people that we talked to if we hadn't said, let me ask you a question. If we hadn't created this space to ask an open question, the space to learn more, to listen, so that we could get to a place where there was locking in and out. There was an opportunity for a next step. So when we talk about communication training in here, it really isn't just about these activities that like Robin comes up with. Or yeah, that might be something that's, interesting to think about, how to ask open-ended questions. These are actually the skills that we're using in our businesses, in our communities, to grow relationships to inevitable results that we have no idea where they could get to. Because the likelihood is, if I hadn't asked those open-ended questions, if I hadn't been listening, probably would have gotten the IPA, would have gotten it too early, she wouldn't have been prepared, she would have been completely overwhelmed and would be gone in a month. And I probably wouldn't even be friends with her because she'd be embarrassed about it. And now we've completely missed helping a family. We've completely missed helping all of the families that she knows that I don't know. So that's just my little commercial for why we're doing these kinds of trainings. That it really is about implementing it into our relationships with people that will create a direct result in growing your skills, a direct result in locking in allies, and a direct result in the inevitable byproduct of explosive growth. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So ask questions, ask questions, ask questions. Practice asking questions. Listen, I'll say it all the time. I'll say it all the time. And in fact, one of the things that's interesting for folks who've been around, and a lot of folks here have been around, let me ask you a question was a very common phrase in Sandlot. But the question that was being asked and whether anyone was listening was a different story. Right? So just saying, let me ask you a question isn't enough. Let's just be clear. You got to follow it with an open-ended question because we're listening for what matters to that person. And more often than not, family, right, is what comes up so that we can apply it. So that's what we're going to keep working on, open-ended questions a lot. And part of what occurs when we're having these conversations, and part of what we started last week that we're going to continue in terms of the 4 principles, is we often will say one thing and think that we're thinking about the same thing, and it turns out that sometimes we're not. So we're just going to talk a little bit about, an example of when that can happen. So, I call up David, and we're talking about something, and he's like, I'm really interested in learning more about, what you're doing. Is there a time that I really want to talk to you. Is there a time you can get together? And I say, let me get back to you in a bit. What does in a bit mean? David, what would you think? If I said, let me get back to you in a bit, what's that mean? Never? Oh, interesting. It could mean never.
That means I would have to follow up on you.
What else? What if I said, let me get back to you in a bit? What else could in a bit mean? Soon. What does soon mean? Specifically. What is soon? 30 minutes. What else is soon?
Next day or two.
Next day, a day or two, right? So I say, let me get back to you in a bit. And you don't actually know if I mean never, 30 minutes, or in a day or two. Interesting, right?
So I go for never.
Never. No, so what if I pass out some of these materials, right? And Wade says, this stuff is outdated. What's that mean? Bob, what does outdated mean to you?
No longer relevant.
It's not relevant. What's outdated? It's old. Anyone else? Outdated. Not relevant. Old. Is there a difference between something being old and something being not relevant?
Yeah.
Could something be old and relevant?
Mm-hmm.
And could something be not relevant and new? Could something be relevant and new? Right? So when we say certain words, we may think we're communicating one thing, and many times the other person is actually thinking something completely different.
Right.
Because Alvita could be thinking old, and Bob could be thinking it's not relevant about the same piece of paper. Here's another interesting one. So Alvita and I just met. We were at the same coffee shop. We connected, and I say, I look forward to building a relationship with you. What does that mean?
At that moment.
So we've been, let me caveat this. We've been talking about business. I saw that face. So if I say I look forward to building a relationship with you in business, how often do you think we're going to talk?
Maybe once or twice a month.
Once or twice a month. If I say I look forward to building a relationship with you in business, how often do you think we're going to talk?
Once a week.
Once a week. Wait,
Quarter.
a quarter. So if you think we're going to talk a couple times a month, and you think we're going to talk a couple times a week, and I call you once a quarter, how do you feel? Does that feel like a relationship to you? It feels like one to Wade. Isn't that interesting? Everybody has a different gauge. And that's where the questions become so important, because we need to check our expectations with folks. So that when we say, I look forward to building a relationship with you, we get to follow it with, let's have coffee once a month. Now we're on the same plane, because mismatched expectations lead to disappointment every single time, and that's going to blow up whatever you're building. So part of the importance of this exercise from last week, right, which you were like, Sirius, why are you making us interpret these principles? Is because even though each of us can say the same words, doesn't mean we actually think it means the same thing. It's important for us to be on the same page about it. Make sense? So that's our exercise for today, interpretation and meaning. Think about the words that you're saying and check assumptions or set expectations. Now we can continue on figuring out what these principles actually mean.
So excited.
What's that? Yeah, let me ask you a question.
I was like, guys, it seems I got a question for you.
Right, I got a question. Let's make sure, remember the carne asada, we're in the running for, so let's keep that going. So we did, we're gonna spend it's funny, there's so much now, like it's cool. We're like, oh, we want to do this, There's like a ton of stuff that we want to do. And I was thinking this morning, hopefully you guys are getting this and getting excited about it. Because my goal is pretty soon, at some point, that we're running like 5 meetings at the same time, right? Like, we're going to have our new folks are gonna need this, right? But can we all agree, like, Don, you don't need to sit through this meeting ever again, but this is an important meeting to have. Like, Bob, it's good that we did this, we did the math, we're like, yep, got it, but if every 5 weeks we run the math, that's gonna get old for us. And so the thing is that we're gonna want one of you running this training. The ability to sit and run this, to be able to connect with people who are learning and trying to learn how to learn. And so there's lots and lots of meetings. And what we're doing now is we've got like 9 meetings that are going on, and we're doing 20 minutes and 20 minutes and 20 minutes on what we will be doing an hour and a half on. When we have a group of people that have the Rule 72 and this account and the theory, degree, responsibility and allies, advocates, and associates and the F&A down, we're not going to be in a room teaching that group of people the Rule 72 and the F&A, right? 2 things will be happening. One, that group will be teaching maybe the Rule 72 because now they're learning their skills of growing. And when we have other meetings, we're going to be able to talk about specifically the hour and a half meeting that we're working on with Adrian on, okay, how are you now growing your entrepreneurial skills or wherever that is? And so the benefit to this is we want to put this stuff to bed. Because there's like, this isn't, who was I talking? Oh, we're talking to Tony and Wendy, right? And one of the biggest challenges that we have is our time assessment. And we've all done it, right? Someone goes to work and they've got 3 hours of work to do and 7 hours to do it. You got 3 hours of work to do and 7 hours to do it. How long does it take to do those 3 hours of work that day? 7 hours. How is that possible? Because you got 7 hours. For most people, why? Because if you do the 3 hour work, they're going to find more stuff for you to do. But are they going to pay you more money to do it? No. And so this is where the conflict occurs. Now, I have a question. If the boss came in and said, we have to get this job done in an hour, could we get 3 hours of work done in an hour if we had to get it done in an hour? A lot of times we could. If we really pressed and really focused and we really focus on it, we can do 7 hours, 3 hours, or 1 hour. Same work. This becomes our dilemma. This is the dilemma in the room. We have this problem right now in this room. Why? Because we don't have 5 teams with 50 people on their teams and all helping 5 or 6 or 8 or 20 people a week. So when someone walks in, they're like, oh God, this is what I'm supposed to do. We walk in going, well, I know it as good as, or I know it as well as, or I can do as much as, and we use each other as an assessment while we build this. Who determines whether it's 7 hours or 3 hours or 1 hour? The people who have done the work before. If they've given that work to 50 people and 50 people can do it in an hour, when you walk in, they say, this will take an hour. We know this will take an hour because it takes 50 people to take an hour. If it takes you 3 hours, you're going to get fired. Because if 50 people can do it in an hour. Does that make sense? If 50 people can do it in 3 hours, but you're really good, you could probably do it in an hour. Now we'll get you promoted. But most of the time, they give us this period of time and they're like, just get it done. We are confronting this now. This exact concept we as an organization have to confront. We've got to start figuring out how do we get it done in an hour when we've got 7 hours to do it, because there's 10 things we want to do. If we think this is the job I have to do today, then we have that time. If we say the moment we get this job done, we get to move to the next job and we got 10 jobs to do, we can shift the way we're approaching it. And that's what we're trying to instill here. We're trying to introduce an urgency into our group, because now we're not trying to figure out the language. We're not trying to figure out our systems. We're not trying to figure out our training tools. We're not trying to figure out any of that. And most of us aren't even trying to learn it. What we're now doing is running. The challenge is we have a perfection problem. we want to be perfect before we do it. And those things are in conflict. Because the only way we learn traditionally is by trying, failing, figuring out what didn't work, trying again, failing less, or failing completely as hard, just completely differently. And now we turn back and we learn how to develop. And so this becomes, and that's important, I think, when we think about the work we're doing here, because locking in advances, we all know it, but we've got to figure out the language to it. Well, the only way we're going to figure out the language to it is to figure out what kind of works, what sort of works, what feels, but it doesn't quite work, right? Ty's got a project that we're working on. He's got to do his literary history, and my beautiful wife came up with an idea of dressing him up like Dr. Seuss, and so we're writing a Dr. Seuss story about his literary history, which means not only does he have to write his literary history, he has to rhyme it. And then deliver it. Like, so there's like scale and then like scale, and this is just, right? So, but what we're doing is we're having, so we're all, it's like a family thing that's going on, and we're like, he came up with, here's the pages, here's the topics. So he chose all, because I'm like, I don't do this kid's work, right? He chose all of the topics, and now we're helping him with the construction of the language, because that's a skill above a 6th grader. But he's going to have to learn it, memorize it, and then deliver it. So that's a pretty good thing. So he's doing a lot of it, but we're kind of, so we're stuck on this page. And here's the reason why I'm talking about this. We spent 45 minutes last night at dinner talking about a single page. Well, what about this? And what about this? And we were throwing out ideas, and we were trying this, and we came up with one, and I was like, that's okay, but I know we can find a better one. And that was one of the most proud moments that I had with Ty, because he went, okay, there was a safe space. He wasn't looking for perfect, like, oh, I got to be right the first time. It was, let's be open. Let's be creative in our minds so that we can get this dialed in. Because when it dials in, we'll know. And it did. The moment the words came, we're like, oh, that's it. There was no confusion to it. But that's an attitude that we get to live. That's what we're talking about here. Does that make any sense? Right? And so I just want to kind of go through, right? So when we talk about, because we're over here. When we talk about getting validation from doing it yourself, what does that mean? When we talk about one of the principles, right? Getting validation from doing it or figuring it out yourself. Just like Robin was talking about, right, with the different like in a bit, what's that actually mean? Because David, you know it, right? If I gave you a piece of paper, you could say, what's the first one? Start over, right? What's the second one? Focus on actions. Third one's validate yourself. Fourth one, isolate chaos. Right? Step 1, we should probably be able to say. It's hard to break them down if we don't know. But we can memorize these 4 things. What's it actually mean to get validation from figuring it out yourself? What do we mean when we say that? Because we don't say it in an endearing light. We don't collectively say that principle as a principle of success. It's an identifier of a limitation in this room. But there's lots of people who would say one of the principles is give validation, do it yourself, and they'd be like, damn Skippy. Like there are people that'll hear us say this and think we're bragging. Like that we're giving them, this is what they should do. And we're categorically saying the opposite. So what we don't want in this room is obedience. This isn't, okay, bad principle, validate from self. This is bad. You can't do what Adrian's doing if you don't understand what it is we're talking about. You can't be in a room of smart people that are trying to create and add value if you don't understand what these principles are based on. Because if Adrian said, well, we got to make sure that we don't get validation doing it ourselves, and he doesn't understand it, and he meets a leader's going to challenge the hell out of him. Well, what do you mean? What do you mean don't get validation doing it yourself? Man, I did this, and they could go off on their own belief that validating doing it yourself is vital. If Adrian doesn't want to be combative, but he wants to be impactful. So if Adrian knows what this guy means, then he has an opportunity to introduce a different philosophy. But if he doesn't understand this, he can't cleanly talk about leveraging experts in a safe space. Yesterday, Robin went to coffee with a friend of ours who's a strong woman, right? And she told the story about the CEO of Yahoo has taken away like maternity leave and all this other, like not taken away, but really reduced it, and you know, like Netflix is giving you forever, and so there's this big like, and she's a woman, and she took and she's been public about this, and then all of a sudden she got pregnant with twins, and so Robin's like, well, let's see what happens there, and she came out and said, 2 weeks, I'll be gone 2 weeks. And we giggle because we know what twins do to a body, right? It's just there's physics, right? There's just certain things. Like she could hire someone to raise the kids, but there's certain things to do. So, and we're pretty passionate about this and stuff going on. So Robin gets into a conversation with a CEO woman yesterday and brings this up, thinking that this woman's like gonna be on her side, right? We're women, we're gonna understand, she's got kids, like blah, blah, blah. And the woman was like, no, she pushed against it. Sometimes you gotta be tough, you gotta be rigid, you gotta be, like, completely took the other perspective. Was not prepared for it. If Robin doesn't understand where she's coming from the other perspective, they get in an argument. And now all of a sudden an ally gets disjointed on something that has nothing to do with what they're doing. But because she could instantly go, oh, this is where you're coming from, she could validate where the other one's coming from, avoid the rest of the conversation because there was no need to finish that conversation because nothing positive was going to come from it, and not undermine the relationship. But she had to understand this part to figure out if there's a space for this conversation. Lots of us only think our opinion and point of view is valid, and so we don't create the space for someone else's opinion or point of view, and if we don't understand it, we can't move someone, ever. Adrian understood how that church is growing because for 12 years he did it. So it's not scary to introduce a different approach and to be able to say, I totally get where you're coming from because I too have been thirsty.
I do know what it's like to be thirsty.
Right? It scared me. Hey, I folded out my little white men can't jump. You can bring that into a meeting. Good thing they're here.
Let's read about them.
So this is why we're doing this, because this morning we ran out of time because I want to do that. But I want to make sure that we understand why we're doing this, the value of this. And my suggestion is don't wait for this on the meeting. Like, spend some time. What the heck what does it mean to isolate in chaos? What does that mean to you? Where is that detrimental? How could that be cumbersome? How could that be limiting? How could focus on actions be limiting? Because we're making a pretty bold statement. This is hurting 70 million families. Like, that's a pretty bold statement. To stand in front of a group of people and say, 70 million families, it's not taxes, It's not the government. It's not what color you are. It's not what education you have necessarily. You want to know the single focus that we've got? Regardless of all of those things matter, but they matter based on the interpretation through the impact of these. That's a pretty bold stance that we're asking all of us to build a business on. We might actually want to know what this means. And then we might want to get good at being able to communicate. Because if you understand this and believe it, and understand this and believe it, you get to have conversations with everybody in the world that no one else is having. You get to come from strength and introduce value. Cleanly, sometimes you're going to get good at it. There's skills. They're going to probably start clumsy. Guess what? Me teaching this is clumsy right now. Right? We spent two trainings on it, and we're halfway done with half of it. A year from now, we'll do this in 45 minutes. I'm not very good at it yet. So, the ideas are so strong. Premise is still clean. I just don't have the right words yet. But we'll get them. And when we dial in the right words, 3 hours becomes 30 minutes. And then once we have the right words, Avita, I'm going to go, okay, Avita, you're running the 4-on-4 drill today. And so she spends the week mastering the language that we've got, and then she gets the people in the room, and in 45 minutes, she got it dialed in, and we're able to make the impact. But if I'm willing to do that in front of you, why can't we need you willing to do that too? It needs to be safe in your world to be clumsy. Well, it doesn't need to be. You'll end up isolated. Which is your choice. You'll end up starting over, doing it when you're motivated, and running from it when you're not. Look, I had a conversation with Sue, and we'll finish up. Kind of going through a bunch of stuff. With Stace not here, I'm having to do more things. I'm sitting down, and I realized something. I realized that when we started the managed accounts, I was hell-bent on $4,200 a month at income. I wanted $50,000 a year. I had some very specific reasons. I was hell-bent on it, right? I didn't become a managed account specialist. We didn't run securities trainings. We didn't have special meetings on investments, but I had a piece of part of my brain that was obsessed and focused on getting this done emotional. I did it. Boom. 11 months ago. 11 months ago, I hit it. Do you know what I've done since then? Effectively, replaced everything I've lost. We've had, well, I pulled the numbers. We've had $1.6 million removed, spent, right? The market, $1.6 million down on the money that I had 11 months ago. Does that make sense? And I've added $1.71 million since. Y'all with me? Net wash. Why?
Because you're focused on the results and instead of focused on the allies, advocates, and associates having it just naturally transpire. No.
That was a habit.
Of to what?
Stamina.
I didn't do bad things. So nothing bad happened. We still locked in allies. We did all this stuff. Yeah, you want to say?
You didn't change your number.
I didn't reset my I want.
Yeah.
I didn't reset my I want. I got focused on what I needed to get focused on, checked it off, and then did what I needed to do to sustain it. And yesterday I went, ooh, uh-oh. Now I'm pretty good at this. Because I'm pretty good at this. And that was 11 months ago. And I'm pretty good at this. And that was 11 months ago. So I'm like, okay, 100 grand. And I will talk about it. I will publicly talk about it. I will drive you guys crazy. Not on, oh, I gotta get it to 100 grand, on my failure on this stuff. This is how is my cathartic opportunities to grow. I will show my weaknesses and my screw-ups because it gives me the opportunity to communicate it and shift and change.
And this is not just Brett. This is important. This is not just Brett, right? There was a study done that showed that independent contractors who had a number in their head didn't realize when they were actually going to surpass that number at month 10 in the year, worked less month 11th and 12th and hit the same number. So this isn't a Brett only thing. This is like, it impacted Brett, but this is a statistically significant psychological experiment that they've shown time and again.
Did it as in the restaurant business, right? I figured out what income I needed. As soon as I got it, we were done. Cut me, I gotta go drink, right? It's just, it's the same habits. But I'm really good at this. Now, the beauty for me was I had the language where I could say, I didn't reset my alarm. Okay, I know where I am. I got my skill. I know where my want is. What can I see? Okay, I got to flesh this out. I got to develop a new habit. I didn't say, oh God, let me call some old people and see if I can find some money. I went, let me instill the habits again. The single most important habit for me when it comes to finding money is to creating a space where money is attracted to me. So that's the first thing I'm doing right now, is I'm creating a space where money is attracted to me. Now that might sound weird, but I'm going to go with it because it works for me. And I'm really good at this. And it's been 11 months and I was stuck and didn't know it. So we get to confront, we get to learn, we get to develop, we get to grow, we get to figure out where we are, we get to get stuck, and then we get to get unstuck. Life's not about not getting stuck. This isn't about not getting stuck. This is about having a space to go, oh, I'm stuck. It's the safest thing I can do, Don, is create that space. Because if it's safe to recognize you're stuck, then we can ask for help to get unstuck. So we're gonna go get another $7 million in the next 8 months. Where's it gonna come from? No idea. We're gonna go get another $7 million in the next 8 months. Why? Because I'm starting to feed where that 100 grand's gonna, where that other 50's gonna go. Maybe we're gonna get 5 or 6 people with $1 million. And so some of it's gonna come, and I'm gonna figure out my headspace, how much of it's gonna be personal and how much of it is gonna be assets through, and I'm gonna play that game. Because that's fun. That's why, to finish this, I want you to get this stuff done. Because the dilemma is, when this is the stuff where your concentration is going, you don't get to concentrate on the other stuff. That's why this 1 hour, 3 hour, 7 hour thing impacts us. We got AA'z night on Wednesday night. Let's blow this thing out. Let's go see, right? It's the holidays, right? Have some fun, take some time with your family. Go see some people. Get your face in front of people. Ask some open-ended questions. Ask them about themselves. If you get stuck, my last little thing, and I just want to make sure, because I always want to do this, because some of us aren't very good at this. If you need a guide for open-ended questions, it's still the best out there. What do you have now? What do you enjoy? What would you like to alter? How did you make this decision? And are you open to solutions? If you ever get confused, what should I talk about? So what do you do now? Really, how'd you start doing that? Have you ever thought about making any changes? How'd you end up making that decision? Are there things that you're working on the side that you're trying to figure out? Still the best option. For me, it's the best go-to. Because the premise of open-ended questions is good. I need directions. This direction. So, good stuff. Thank you for sharing. All of y'all, thank you. Guys, let's blow Wednesday night out. All right, we got some stuff, carne asada, we got some stuff out this weekend. Let's make sure we get that stuff done. Let's create it. Love you guys. Thank you. Team Access.
Explodes!
Exploding. One of those things. We'll figure it out. Explode!
Explode!
I was